I realize it's impossible to try to describe what happened in the title. Just to clarify that it is nothing like it sounds, and that the post is long. Okay, when I was 14 years old, 34F, I finally got my life back on track after a rough childhood. I lost my dad, was bullied at school, and simply had some rough years. But I changed schools, I met my group friends and someone who a couple of months later became my first boyfriend, Tomas, 34M now. I was really happy. I felt like I had finally found my place. I was doing well in school, had a job, and at least 2 weekends a month, my group of friends and I would leave the town to go to a city on the coast or the capital city, just 2 or 3 hours away by car. I'm from Argentina, and we would go to see our favorite national rock bands. We loved it. We were big fans. Back then, it was the coolest thing to do in my country. Doing pogo, pushing people to get to the front fence, screaming the lyrics, etc. It doesn't seem important, but it is. Basically, when I was 16, my friend group and I headed to the capital to go see one of our favorite bands, Callejeros, at a place called Cromañón. I'm not gonna explain what happened, just gonna say that the biggest tragedy of rock happened that night. Lots of victims and lots of people that ended up hurt. I ended up hurt. I still have a big scar on my thigh. 2 of my closest friends passed away that night. It was a big, big mess. I can never explain what I felt. I remember I started to go out every weekend. I would get drunk up my ass. I avoided talking about it at all. I would leave the room when someone even spoke about it. I kept pretending that everything was fine. That I was fine. In case you're wondering, getting alcohol in Latin America as a minor is not hard, much less in a small town. Plus, I'm from a town where, for some reason, we also go out on Thursdays, and in Latin America, we usually leave clubs and parties around 6 a.m. on Fridays. I would show up drunk at school. But that was common, so no one realized. Tomas was there, supporting me through everything. Working hard to get a smile out of me every day, trying to get me to open up, but not pushing me too much either, and hugging me when I needed to. And well, our relationship grew stronger, despite my going into a darker hole. When we graduated, we moved to the same city to keep studying, and I decided that it was time for me to cut the bullshit. I got a part-time job, worked hard to get the best grades, made new friends, and stopped partying so much. I thought I was fine, or at least I wanted to convince myself that I was. But with time, I realized that I wasn't. We were like 20 years old, and I remember starting to drink again. I hated myself. I felt miserable. I had nightmares that night, and I felt even worse because I thought I was being ungrateful. I survived, at least in my mind, feeling like this was pathetic. Mental health, well, we didn't speak much about it then. It was taboo to go to therapy. During this time, I started to treat Tomas badly. I was mistreating myself. While not physically abusing him, I frequently yelled at him or called him derogatory names when he was merely attempting to assist. I kept pushing him away. I realized he deserved better than me. Tomas was always an angel. Of course he was. It did not make sense to me why he was still supporting me. When he found me passed out after so much drinking on the floor, he would take me to the bathroom, bathe me, dress me, put me in bed, cook me, and clean my apartment. It only made me feel worse. I had a great man, and I was treating him like shit. He simply deserved better than me. I tried to tell him that we needed to break up, but he refused. Tomas refused, and told me he would stick next to me no matter what. But I only got worse, and I felt like I was going to drag him with me, and I couldn't stand the idea of seeing him with me. So after thinking about it, I made a choice. I did the only thing I knew he wouldn't forgive. Well, I told him I did it. I told him I cheated on him with a guy from my work. He was envious of a friend. He was upset, confused, angry, sad, and felt betrayed, of course. It was heartbreaking to see him like that, but I knew it was necessary. He was much better without me. I was just a dead weight back then. Anyway, he left. I simply did not see him again afterwards. I didn't call him either, and I didn't search for him even though I wanted to. After I graduated, I got a full-time job, and I got tired of feeling miserable. My mom put me in contact with survivors. I'm going to clarify that many survivors had killed themselves or tried to. Most of us ended up with serious mental health issues, as you can see, and they ended up convincing me to start therapy. I quit drinking for good, and it was really hard. Finally, I stopped avoiding reality and faced my problems, accepting that I needed help. The process of opening up was hard but worth it. Countless are the nights when I just stared at the phone, wondering if I should call Tomas or not. I wanted to call him, tell him I had lied, apologize for everything, and thank him for everything he did for me. I have to say that Tomas did call to check up a few times, but I always decided not to pick up. I heard a lot of voicemails from him while he was drunk, asking how I could do that to him, but he would still say that he loved me, and he asked me how I was. I forced myself to never answer. With time, his calls stopped. I got better, and I started to go back to my old self slowly. I started dating again, started to have more fun, and eventually got married and had a daughter. Life did get better for me, but all that goes up goes down, and my husband ended up cheating on me. Karma's a bitch, I know. I divorced him, and I was able to buy my own house and get primary custody of our daughter. My daughter has been the light of my eyes, and even with everything that has happened lately, for her, I would never let myself fall into that depression again. I was and still am happier than ever. Anyway, I got in contact again with Tomas, like 5 months ago. He found me on Instagram and just sent me a DM, and we started to chat to catch up about life. He also had a kid, a 5-year-old son, but he's not with his mother. It was a one-night thing, and they have a good co-parenting relationship. He has him 2 weeks a month. The thing is, we started to meet up again. We were just friends at first, but then we started to hook up. We would go on dates, but we never talked about the cheating. But finally, I confessed that my feelings for him were back. Tomas told me he was feeling the same, but he wasn't sure about starting anything again with someone who had cheated. That's when I chose to finally open up about what happened in the past, about how I was feeling, and how I didn't want to drag him with me, so that's why I chose to lie about cheating on him. Tomas was shocked. He got upset, and I remember how he left. He called me later and told me I shouldn't have lied to him about something like cheating, and that I should have just told him that I didn't want to be with him anymore. I explained again my side, and told him I would rather him think real bad of me, to be real sad for a while, but eventually move on, than drag him with me to my dark hole. He just told me that he was an adult who could make his own choices, and that he just wanted to be there for me. I told him I didn't regret what I did, but I apologized for hurting him and handed him up, and we haven't talked ever since. He called me yesterday, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready to talk with him yet. I have been processing all this information. Despite not being the best way, all these years I believed I had done him a favor with this. Even though it hurt him, it was the best for him. Also, I was not even close to being good enough to be in a relationship. I honestly don't know. I do know it wasn't the best way, but I had no reason to reject him. I knew he would have been able to convince me that he wanted to stay with me despite everything. ITA has no consensus bot, but OOP had the majority of YTAs, several NTAs, and NA8s. Relevant comments. OOP on not loving Tomas in the same way he loved her when they were together. OOP. Indeed, I adore him, more so than any other person I have ever loved. That's why I did what I did. On top of everything, I couldn't even stand to keep hurting someone I loved so much. And I still love him more than anything. I'm planning on talking to him this weekend, face to face, when everything is calmer, and my daughter will be with his father. I already opened up to him about everything, and apologized for what happened, how I treated him, and how I handled things. But he was still upset, and honestly, he has every right to be. Anyway, thanks for the comment. I really appreciate it. Obnoxious_pauper YTA. Justifying your behaviors by explaining trauma after the fact so you don't have to hold the bag anymore is crap. Now he feels like garbage twice, and you don't have the baggage anymore. Good luck, OP. OOP. I didn't actually write about my trauma to justify my actions, but to explain why I thought it was the best choice. Explaining and justifying are two different things. Back then I felt like a dead weight to him, and like I've said, at least for me, the last thing I wanted to do was drag someone I loved so much with me to a dark place. Of course, he felt like crap when I told him I cheated, which, like I said, I did not. But in my mind back then, it was better for him to stay with me. He would have remained even if I had ended our relationship, given that he is and has always been an incredible individual. But he deserved better, in my opinion. A toxic relationship can only ruin you if you stay there. The cheating was like ripping a bandage. It hurt, but he will eventually feel better. Now, A toxic relationship will progressively ruin you. Update 5 days later. Unfortunately, my post fell on the side full of red pill incels and annoying bots that I didn't even read or couldn't comprehend. And I realized this just by reading the first sentence. I don't really care. I didn't even bother to read those comments, to be honest. But I couldn't get much useful advice, which was what I was looking for. But I got a few, and I appreciate them, honestly. Anyway, I'm going to start by clarifying that everything I wrote about the Cro-Magnon tragedy, I only wrote for context. It was more than 19 years ago. I only wrote it to explain the place where I was, how my mind worked, and how I was feeling. I would never ever come to ask advice about something like that on Reddit. Come on, be serious for the love of God. I'm saying this for all the people who acted like psychiatrists and psychologists and even tried to make a diagnosis out of a Reddit post. Seriously, even if it was with good intentions, it is dangerous and really irresponsible to do so. I don't have PTSD. I searched for professional help after graduating from university. I graduated 13 years ago. Psychiatrists and psychologists never diagnosed me with PTSD. I had depression and anxiety. I could never explain the amount of pain I felt after the tragedy and how it only got worse because I didn't search for help right away. It took a lot of work, but years of therapy and support from friends and family finally made me get back to my old self. Not fully like I wanted to, but to a point I didn't even recognize myself. I'm saying that for the ones who told me I was toxic, and I guess I was on point. But the others were never the problem. I was so self-destructive back then that I thought the best would be to push everyone again. But like I said, that was so long ago, and I'm not even close to being like that. I repeat, I wouldn't be so irresponsible as to get into another relationship, get married, and have a child. When Tomas and I first started to date again, it was like the first year of our relationship. Healthy, fun, and full of love. Not like the last year of our relationship. That was definitely the worst year of my life. I've talked about it in therapy for years and years, and I put it behind me years ago. Now it's just something that marked me, but that is my past. It left me with lots and lots of problems. But well, it is what it is. I survived and should be thankful for it. Anyway, back to the point. Tomas and I met up on Saturday, and things went well. We had a long talk. We talked for hours about everything. He opened up about how hurt he felt, how awful the months after our breakup were, and how he felt like I was making the choice for him. I told him that I was not only doing it for him, but also for me. I couldn't be in a relationship back then. How could I? I was traumatized for whatever reason. And back then I was so self-destructive and not nice to be around. I also told him how he might have wanted to stay, but I didn't want him to. Despite my attempts to break up with him multiple times, he refused to listen to my reasons and apologized. However, he also expressed his deep love for me and explained that he couldn't leave me in that situation. And how, even after he thought I had cheated, he was scared about me trying to kill myself. Every time there was news about one of the survivors of Cro-Magnon who had killed themselves, he would freak out, thinking it was me. I told him I loved him so much back then and now. But at least for me, it was not healthy to maintain a relationship. It was toxic, and it wouldn't have helped any of us at all. We apologized to each other, and I clarified that I wanted to leave all of this behind and just be us, to finally put this in the past. He agreed. We cried, but they were tears of happiness. I hadn't been so happy in a while. I guess deep down it was what I always wanted, ever since we broke up. To be okay again, and to be like we used to. I guess I never stopped loving him, and he never stopped loving me. I always wonder where he was, or if he was okay. I wonder what would have happened if things had been different. But now I don't have to wonder anymore, because we're together now. And that's all that matters, but one step at a time. Story 2. My 24M girlfriend, 27F, doesn't think I make enough money. I'm 24 years old, and I currently earn a salary of $130,000. My girlfriend of nearly 3 years often compares me to her friends, co-workers, my friends, or anyone who she knows earns more money than I do. She constantly tells me she thinks I'm underpaid. She's extremely driven by money, whereas I am not. She's 27, and most of her friends are a year or two older than her. Those friends have partners who are older than even they are, and so a few of them make a decent amount more than I do. And I'm reminded of this every so often, and I'm so tired of it. For comparison, my girlfriend just got a raise and is making around 115K now. Also, for more information, I was making 70K when we started dating, so I've gotten 60K extra over the past 3 years, but it's still not enough. I'm not bragging here, but I flat out know that I'm on good money for someone my age. But it hasn't ever been about money to me. As a teenager, I was very depressed and insecure, and when I finished high school, I vowed to turn my life around and make happiness my #1 priority. That's what I did, and that's how it's remained. The problem is that happiness isn't her top priority, it's money. She just wants to be rich. And personally, I don't care enough about that to sacrifice my happiness. Her boss is about 15 years older than her, makes about $400K, and flies business class everywhere. When my girlfriend found out about this, she said her #1 goal is to fly business class everywhere. Sure, business is nice, but I'm just not aligned with what she wants in life. And at 3 years into this relationship, I don't know what to do about it. I'd say that about 75% of the time together, we're happy. Usually when we're not talking about things related to money. She's constantly pressuring me to leave my job while I love my current job, have continuously gotten new opportunities internally, and really don't want to leave. It stinks that she makes me feel inadequate when I am performing exceptionally well for my age. As a person who wants to prioritize my happiness, my current job, and pay should be a reason for me to be happy. And it usually is until she makes me feel unhappy about it. I guess I'm struggling to figure out what to do. I feel like I can't take this for much longer, but honestly, I'm afraid of breaking up. How should I handle a situation where my partner values money more than I do? To the point that it makes me so unhappy, but I'm happy with many other aspects of our relationship?